On a rainy night, Officer Holloway finds Lila at a bus stop, tightly holding yellow shoes. Mention of her parents sends her fleeing into the forest. At the station, he learns she ran from the orphanage as they wanted her to abandon the shoes. Will Holloway be able to break the rules to give Lila a loving home? Hey everyone, welcome to Worldly Whispers. Let's get started. On a dreary, rainy evening in Westford, Officer Mark Holloway carried out his regular patrol. The normally lively Ashmore Street was now hushed, with only the rhythmic patter of raindrops disturbing the silence. As he drove along, a small, solitary figure at a bus stop caught his attention. Pulling up, he discovered a young black girl, likely around 9 or 10 years old. She was huddled on the cold, wet ground, her knees drawn close to her chest. Her pink dress was in a sorry state, dirty and disheveled, while she clung tightly to a pair of bright yellow high heels. The sight of the girl instantly stirred Holloway's memories. Years ago, during one of his patrols, a tragic fire took away his wife and daughter. The guilt and pain from that fateful night still haunted him. Holloway exited his patrol car and moved slowly towards the girl. He spoke in a gentle tone, attempting to be as non-menacing as possible. "Hello there. I'm Officer Holloway. I just want to ensure you're all right," he said. However, the girl remained still, her gaze fixed blankly ahead. He tried to start a conversation, remarking on her shoes. "Those are really nice shoes. Are they special?" he asked. For a brief moment, a glimmer of something, perhaps recognition or fear, flickered in the girl's eyes. But when Holloway brought up the topic of her parents, asking if he could call them, the girl's demeanor changed drastically. She became panicked, and in an instant, she jumped up and sprinted across the street, disappearing into the nearby forest. Without hesitation, Holloway gave chase. His protective instincts were in full gear. As he ran, he radioed for backup. "Dispatch, this is Officer Holloway. I'm chasing a young girl, potentially a runaway, who's entered the woods near Ashmore Street. I need backup," he informed. The forest was dark and slippery due to the rain, but Holloway kept his focus on the girl's fleeting pink dress. Eventually, he caught up with her. She was hiding behind a large oak tree, looking at him with terror in her eyes. Holloway sat down on the ground, making himself seem less threatening. He began to talk about his own daughter, Emma. "I once had a little girl named Emma. She loved running, just like you seem to," he said. The girl seemed to be listening intently. Finally, the girl spoke. In a voice so soft it was almost a breath, she said, "My name is Lila." Holloway felt a sense of relief. It was a small victory. He coaxed Lila gently to accompany him. They made their way back through the forest to his patrol car. Once there, Holloway wrapped her in a warm blanket, assuring her that she was safe. With Lila in the passenger seat, he drove towards the police station, fully aware that this encounter would have a profound impact on both of their lives. At the police station, Officer Holloway led Lila through the quieter corridors to a small, child-friendly interview room. The room was painted in warm colors and filled with comfortable furniture, books, and toys, all meant to be reassuring. Lila, still clutching her yellow shoes, hesitantly entered and sat in a plush armchair in the corner. Holloway fetched another blanket to drape over her shivering shoulders and offered to make some hot chocolate, which Lila shyly agreed to. As he left to prepare it, he encountered his colleague, Officer Maria Rodriguez. He quickly filled her in on the situation and asked if she could sit with Lila. Maria, compassionate as always, readily agreed and went to gather some snacks and dry clothes for the girl. When Holloway returned with the hot chocolate, he found Lila still focused on her shoes. He set the steaming mug beside her, and she thanked him softly. Then, he gently informed her that Maria would be joining them. Lila's eyes widened slightly with fear, but Holloway reassured her that he wouldn't be far away. Just then, Maria entered with her arms full of items. She greeted Lila warmly and placed the snacks and clothes on the table. As Holloway left the room, he could hear Maria engaging Lila in conversation, asking about her favorite book. Back at his desk, Holloway made some calls. He soon learned that Lila was a runaway from the Everbright orphanage, which was just a few miles outside of town. They had reported her missing earlier that day. On one hand, protocol dictated that he should call the orphanage, inform them that Lila had been found, and arrange for her return. But something in his gut told him there was more to the story. He thought about Lila's reluctance to talk, her intense attachment to the yellow shoes, and the fear in her eyes. He couldn't shake the feeling that returning her to the orphanage without understanding the root of her distress might not be the best solution. He remembered his own loss, the pain of losing his wife and daughter, and how it had left him feeling adrift. He empathized with Lila's apparent sense of loss and alienation. After a while, Holloway returned to the interview room. Maria was in the middle of telling a story, and Lila seemed to be listening intently. He asked if he could have a word with Lila. With Maria's reassuring presence, Lila agreed. Holloway sat down across from Lila and gently asked her why she had run away from the orphanage. Lila tensed up, her eyes fixed on the yellow shoes. After a long moment of silence, she spoke in a barely audible voice. She said that the people at the orphanage wanted her to forget about her mother and give up the shoes, which were the only thing she had left of her. She couldn't bear to part with them and felt that the orphanage didn't understand her grief. Holloway's heart ached for Lila. He knew that the pain of losing a loved one was not something that could be easily pushed aside. He decided then and there that he couldn't just send her back to a place that seemed to be causing her more harm than good. But he also knew that going against protocol would be a risky move, both for his career and for Lila's future. As Lila's sobs filled the room, Maria comforted her. Holloway sat there, his mind racing, trying to figure out a way to help this broken-hearted child. He knew that he had to find a solution that would truly meet Lila's needs, not just one that followed the rules. As Lila's sobs subsided with Maria's comfort, Officer Holloway knew he had to act. The social worker, Sarah Jensen, arrived at the station, ready to take charge of Lila's case according to protocol. She informed Holloway that Lila should be returned to the Everbright orphanage immediately. Holloway, however, was determined to advocate for Lila. He took Sarah aside and detailed everything that had happened since he found Lila at the bus stop. He emphasized Lila's deep-seated grief, her attachment to the yellow shoes, and the apparent lack of understanding at the orphanage. Sarah listened intently, her initial professional detachment softening as she realized the complexity of the situation. Just then Lila, still visibly upset, asked for Holloway. When they entered the room, Lila, her eyes filled with fear, asked if they were sending her back. Sarah knelt down to Lila's level and gently inquired about her reluctance to return. Lila poured out her heart, saying that the kids at the orphanage made fun of her for being sad, and the staff wanted her to give up her mother's shoes. Sarah, moved by Lila's words, tried to reassure her. She explained that they needed to ensure Lila's safety, and that she would look into better options for her care. But for now, returning to the orphanage was the most immediate solution. Holloway stepped in, promising Lila that no one would take her shoes away. He also assured her that he would check in on her, and that Sarah was working to find a more suitable arrangement. Reluctantly, Lila agreed. Holloway and Sarah then made the necessary arrangements. Holloway drove Lila back to the orphanage, with his colleague Officer Johnson accompanying them for moral support. As they approached the orphanage, Lila's grip on her shoes tightened and her body tensed. At the orphanage, Mrs. Blackwood, the director, came out to greet them. She was relieved to see Lila safe, but also a bit exasperated. Holloway asked for a private word with her and explained Lila's emotional state and the importance of allowing her to keep the shoes. Mrs. Blackwood initially seemed hesitant, stating that they had protocols to follow and that Lila needed to move on and integrate with the other children. Holloway, however, was persistent. He argued that grief was a process that couldn't be rushed and that taking away Lila's only connection to her mother could cause further emotional damage. After some discussion, Mrs. Blackwood finally agreed to let Lila keep the shoes for the time being. Holloway then went to see Lila in the common room. She looked up at him with a mix of hope and fear. He knelt down and told her that everything would be okay. Lila asked if he would come back, and he promised he would. As he left the orphanage, Holloway couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to do more for Lila. Back at the station, Holloway couldn't focus on his work. His mind kept returning to Lila's sad face. As the evening wore on, he decided he couldn't leave things as they were. Despite the late hour, he drove back to the orphanage. He told the night attendant that there had been a development in Lila's case and that he needed to speak with her immediately. The attendant, though surprised, led him to Lila's room. When Lila saw Holloway, her eyes filled with a mix of confusion and relief. Holloway sat on the edge of her bed and told her that he couldn't stop thinking about how scared and alone she must be feeling. He asked if she would like it if he stayed in the building that night, so she would know someone who cared was nearby. Lila, her eyes wide, nodded shyly. Holloway then arranged with the night attendant to sleep on the couch in the break room. As he lay there, he knew he was crossing a line. This wasn't part of the protocol, but his heart told him it was the right thing to do for Lila. The night passed fitfully, with Holloway constantly on alert for any sound from Lila. As dawn broke, he was ready to face whatever the new day would bring for him and Lila. The first light of dawn filtered through the small window of the break room in the orphanage, rousing Officer Holloway from his fitful sleep. His body ached from the uncomfortable couch, but his mind was immediately focused on Lila. He quickly freshened up and made his way to her room. When he knocked gently and entered, he found Lila already awake, sitting on the edge of her bed, clutching the yellow shoes. Her eyes lit up when she saw him, and a small smile formed on her face. "Good morning, Lila," Holloway said softly. "How did you sleep?" Lila replied that she slept better than usual, thanks to him staying nearby. Holloway sat down beside her, and they talked for a while. He asked her how she was feeling about staying at the orphanage for now. Lila's smile faded, and she looked down at the shoes. "I'm still scared, Officer Holloway. I don't want to be here, but I know you're trying to help," she said. Holloway assured her that he was working hard to find a better solution for her. As the morning progressed, a staff member brought Lila's breakfast. Holloway watched as she ate, noticing that she seemed a bit more at ease than the previous day. After she finished, he took the opportunity to broach a big topic. "Lila, I've been thinking a lot about your situation. I was wondering if you'd like to come and live with me, maybe as a foster child," he said, his voice gentle but serious. Lila's eyes widened in disbelief. You want me to live with you?" she stammered. Holloway nodded, explaining that there was a lot of paperwork and procedures to go through first, but he was committed to making it happen if she was interested. Lila's face broke into a huge smile, and she threw her arms around him. "Yes, please," she exclaimed. Just then, Mrs. Blackwood entered the room. Her face was stern when she saw Holloway. "Officer Holloway, a word in my office, please," she said curtly. Holloway gave Lila's shoulder a reassuring squeeze and followed the director. In her office, Mrs. Blackwood expressed her displeasure at Holloway's unorthodox actions, especially staying the night without permission. Holloway calmly explained his reasons, emphasizing Lila's emotional needs and his determination to provide a more suitable environment for her. He then declared his intention to apply to become Lila's foster parent. Mrs. Blackwood was taken aback. "You're a police officer, not a child care professional. Do you really think you're equipped to handle this?" she asked skeptically. Holloway looked her in the eye and said, "I was a father once. I know what it's like to love and protect a child. I also know what it's like to lose a family, just like Lila has. I want to give her a home where she can feel safe and loved." Mrs. Blackwood's expression softened slightly, but she still warned him that the fostering process was long and rigorous, with no guarantee of approval. Undeterred, Holloway left the office and returned to Lila. He told her that they were going to face some challenges, but he was committed to making their dream of living together a reality. Lila listened intently, her eyes full of hope. Over the next few weeks, Holloway was inundated with the foster parent application process. There was mountains of paperwork to fill out, background checks to undergo, and home inspections to pass. He spent every spare moment preparing his home for Lila's potential arrival. He painted the spare room a soft yellow, just as Lila had mentioned she liked. He bought new furniture, including a bed, a desk, and a bookshelf, and filled it with books he thought she might enjoy. Throughout this time, Holloway made sure to visit Lila at the orphanage as often as he could. During these visits, they would talk for hours. Lila started opening up more about her life before the orphanage, sharing stories about her mother and their happy times together. Holloway listened attentively, offering words of comfort and support. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of waiting, the day arrived when all the necessary approvals came through. Holloway drove to the orphanage with a mix of excitement and nervousness. When he entered the lobby, his heart skipped a beat at the sight of Lila standing there with a small suitcase in one hand and her mother's yellow shoes in the other. "Ready to go home?" he asked softly. Lila nodded, her eyes shining with a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Home," she repeated, as if the word held a new and special meaning. The drive back to Holloway's house was filled with a comfortable silence. Both were lost in thought about the new chapter in their lives. When they arrived, Holloway showed Lila her new room. She looked around in wonder, running her hands over the new bedspread and the smooth surface of the desk. "This is all for me?" she asked in disbelief. Holloway nodded, smiling. "All for you, Lila. I hope you like it." As the days turned into weeks, Holloway and Lila began to settle into a routine. There were, of course, challenges. Lila had nightmares about her mother, waking up screaming in the middle of the night. On some days, the weight of her grief would overwhelm her, and she would become quiet and withdrawn. But Holloway was always there, offering a listening ear, a comforting hug, or a funny story to make her smile. One evening, while helping Lila unpack the last of her things from the orphanage, she held up the yellow shoes, looking unsure of where to put them. "I don't know where these fit in here," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. Holloway took the shoes gently and placed them beside her bed. "How about here?" They'll be close by, and you can see them whenever you want, he suggested. Lila looked at him, her eyes full of uncertainty. But won't they get in the way? She asked. Holloway shook his head. No, they're a part of you, Lila. They're part of your story, and your mom will always be with you, no matter where those shoes are. They're just a reminder of her love. Lila's eyes filled with tears, but this time, there was a glimmer of understanding in them. She nodded, and together they placed the shoes under the bed, with just the toes peeking out. As the weeks went by, their bond grew stronger. They developed their own little rituals and inside jokes. Holloway learned how to braid Lila's hair, and Lila discovered a love for his corny puns. Despite the difficult days, they found joy in the simple things, and their home was filled with laughter and love. As the months passed, Officer Holloway and Lila's bond grew deeper. Their home was filled with a newfound sense of warmth and belonging. Lila continued to have her ups and downs. There were still days when the pain of losing her mother was overwhelming, and she would become quiet and withdrawn. But Holloway had learned to recognize these signs and was always there to comfort her. On one such day, Lila came home from school looking particularly down. Holloway noticed immediately and sat her down on the couch. "What's wrong, Lila?" he asked gently. Lila hesitated for a moment, then said, "Today at school, we were talking about our families, and I just missed Mom so much." Holloway put his arm around her. "It's okay to miss her, Lila. She was a big part of your life, and she always will be." He then shared more stories about his own family, about the good times and the bad. Lila listened intently, finding comfort in his words. As time went on, Lila started to participate more in school activities. She joined the school's art club and discovered a passion for painting. Holloway was proud of her progress and supported her every step of the way. He would often sit with her in the evenings, looking at her paintings and listening to her talk about her ideas. One Saturday morning, as they were having breakfast, Lila looked up at Holloway with a serious expression. "Dad," she said, using the name that had become more and more natural for her, "do you think it would be okay if we visited Mom's grave?" Holloway was taken aback for a moment, but quickly composed himself. "Of course, Lila. We can go whenever you're ready." A few days later, they made the trip to the cemetery. Lila brought a bouquet of her mother's favorite flowers. As they stood in front of the grave, Lila placed the flowers gently and said a silent prayer. Holloway stood beside her, offering his support. After a while, Lila turned to him with a small smile. "Thank you, Dad. I feel better now." Back at home, Lila seemed more at peace. She started to open up even more about her feelings and experiences. One evening, as they were sitting on the porch, Lila said, "Dad, I'm so glad I have you. You've made me feel like I have a family again." Holloway's heart swelled with pride and love. "I'm glad too, Lila. You've brought so much joy back into my life." The yellow shoes, which had been under Lila's bed for so long, still held a special place in her heart. One day, Lila decided to take them out and clean them. As she was carefully polishing them, she said, "Dad, these shoes used to make me so sad, but now they just make me feel happy because they remind me of Mom and how much she loved me." Holloway nodded. "That's right, Lila. They're a symbol of the love that will always be there, and they're also a part of our journey together." As the summer approached, Lila had another big decision to make. She was offered a spot in a summer art camp. She was excited, but also a bit nervous. "What if I don't fit in, Dad?" she asked. Holloway encouraged her. "You'll do great, Lila. You're so talented, and I know you'll make new friends." Lila decided to go for it. The day she left for the camp, Holloway drove her there. As he watched her walk into the camp with her art supplies, he felt a mix of pride and a bit of sadness. But he knew this was an important step for her. While Lila was at the camp, she had an amazing time. She made new friends, learned new painting techniques, and even won a small award for her artwork. When she came back home, she was full of stories to tell Holloway. As the end of summer neared, Lila and Holloway started to think about the future. Lila was excited about starting a new school year, and Holloway was looking forward to seeing her continue to grow and thrive. They both knew that their journey together had been full of challenges, but they were also grateful for the love and support they had found in each other. And as they looked ahead, they were ready to face whatever came their way, knowing that they had each other to rely on.
If this story touched you, show your support by liking and subscribing. Your encouragement helps us keep sharing memorable stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.